The movie begins with us meeting Walter Sparrow, who is an animal control officer. Today is Walter's birthday, and he is eagerly waiting for his shift to end. However, with only 1 minute left until his duty finishes, he receives a call from his boss, who orders him to go on an emergency. Walter gets very irritated by this, but he agrees and heads toward the specified location. Walter arrives at the basement of a Chinese restaurant where he has to control an angry dog. To distract the dog, he starts telling it a story and finally succeeds in catching it. When he checks the dog's tag, the name Ned is written on it, which somehow shocks Walter. In that moment, Ned bites him and runs away, after which the injured Walter takes a tranquilizer and goes after him. While chasing, Walter reaches a cemetery, but upon arriving there, the dog suddenly disappears. There, Walter's eyes fall on the gravestone of a woman named Laura Tollins. On the other hand, Walter's wife, Agatha, is waiting for him with a cake for the celebration. But when he doesn't arrive, she goes into a bookstore. There, she sees a book titled The Number 23, which catches her attention. A little later, Walter arrives there and sees his wife reading that book. Ned is silently watching him there, and Walter tells Agatha about the incident with the dog. Agatha gives that book to Walter as a birthday gift, whose author is a mysterious person named Topsy Kretz. Later, they go to a party with their friends, but the curious Walter cannot stop himself from reading the book. Upon returning home, Walter's son Robin wishes him and gives him a gift. When Walter opens the first chapter of the book, he finds out that the main character's name is Fingerling, who is a detective. The next day, Walter gets a day off because of the dog bite, so he stays at home and starts the second chapter. The story is about a boy who lives in a town and is very studious because he knows that education is the only way to escape that place. The boy's name is Fingerling, and he had a great friendship with his neighbor Widow Dobkin's dog, which always ran toward their house. The boy always went to drop the dog back home, even though his father had a strict rule that he would not step foot in the neighbor's yard. On his 8th birthday, he breaks this rule and follows the dog, where he is horrified to see Widow Dobkins dead in her bedroom. Although the authorities declare it a suicide, Fingerling feels that it is the work of a man, and this very thing inspires him to become a detective. After finishing the chapter, Walter tells Agatha that there are many things in common between him and Fingerling, and it feels as if this book is based on his own memories. He shows her a photo album which has a dog just like the one that gave him the inspiration to work in animal control. Walter also mentions that the widow woman reminds him of his mother, who died when he was 8 years old. But Agatha does not think Fingerling is like him and tells him to continue reading. Walter continues reading and sees that Fingerling has now become a detective and meets a woman named Fabrizia. On February 5th, Walter is reading the same book even during work, and now he reaches the 5th chapter. In this part, Detective Fingerling meets a blonde woman who is about to commit suicide. He succeeds in changing her mind by charming her. The girl says that all of this is because of number 23 and starts tearing posters off the walls. She tells him that her father also became a victim of this curse after his wife's death and took his own life, and now this number haunts her everywhere. Fingerling tells her a story to distract her. The girl laughs, and Fingerling feels that he has saved her, but as soon as he leaves, the girl falls right in front of him and takes her life. Reading this, Walter is stunned and realizes that the first letter of his name, W, also comes at the 23rd position. Walter goes to the store to find out about the author, but he discovers that it is a self-published book, and the author has written nothing else besides this. Coming home, Walter explains that the letters of his name, his birthday, his time of birth, and his social security number all total up to 23. He becomes convinced that the book is about him, but Agatha remains skeptical. She tells him that in the book, Fingerling eventually becomes a killer. So is he also a killer? Walter reads the 7th chapter where Fingerling also starts seeing 23 everywhere. He goes to a hotel with Fabrizia. After that day, he starts having terrible nightmares about killing Fabrizia. In the real world, Walter also starts having hallucinations that he is stabbing someone. When he counts his wife's shoes, they also total 23. On February 6th, Walter is so scared of these thoughts that he sleeps on the sofa instead of the bed. Agatha sees that many calculations are written on Walter's arm which total up to 23, and along with them, a message is written, "Kill her." She becomes very worried and immediately calls her friend, Dr. Isaac, for help. In the next scene, Walter reaches a university where he meets Dr. Isaac, who is a professor there. Walter asks him for help, so Isaac guesses that perhaps all of this is the result of a conspiracy theory. Even during the conversation, Walter continues to see the number 23 everywhere, and he says that Agatha thinks he is going crazy, but Isaac advises him to finish the book first, and if he still feels it is about him, then only its author can give him the correct answer. After this, Walter continues reading the book and finds out that Fingerling also goes to see his psychiatrist, Dr. Phoenix, because he gets dreams about murdering his girlfriend. The doctor assures him that everything will be fine with time and suggests that he take a break from work for a while. When he returns home, Fabrizia is angry that he has taken a leave, and she starts to leave him. After this, Fingerling notices that Fabrizia has 23 pairs of shoes, so in anger, he throws one pair out. A few days later, Fingerling tells all of this to Dr. Phoenix, who sees Fabrizia's picture and offers to talk to her. Fingerling agrees, but after that, an affair starts between the doctor and Fabrizia. Reading all of this makes Walter think of Dr. Isaac, and he becomes afraid that he might also be having an affair with his wife. He sets out to find her and sees the number 23 everywhere on the way. Walter reaches his wife's store, which is closed, but he is surprised to see that she is inside talking to Isaac. That same night, Walter wakes up from a terrible dream and suddenly leaves the house. He reaches a hotel named King Edward and asks for room number 23. There, Walter continues reading the book and has now reached chapter 22, where Dr. Phoenix comes to meet Fabrizia and is horrified to see her lying there covered in blood, dead. Fingerling is hiding nearby, and it turns out that he murdered his girlfriend in a fit of rage. However, the police see Dr. Phoenix with the bloody knife and arrest him on the charge of murder. During this time, Fingerling is standing at the window and is about to jump, but before Walter can find out what happened next, the book ends, because nothing is written after chapter 22. At that very moment, he hears the sound of a dog barking outside, and it is Ned. Walter starts chasing him, and the dog takes him to the cemetery once again. There, Walter puts him to sleep with a tranquilizer. At that same time, a priest comes there with his gardener, who is Ned's owner. Walter tells him that he has just put the dog to sleep. The priest tells him that Ned has a strange habit of guarding graves. When Walter looks at the grave, he finds out it is the grave of a girl named Laura Tollins, who died on her 23rd birthday. The priest says that they don't even know if she is actually dead or not because her body was never found. Upon returning home, Walter meets Dr. Isaac there again, and Walter tells everyone that this is not just a book, but a confession of a murder. He shows them newspaper clippings about Laura's death from 15 years ago, and says that her lover, Professor Kyle, was arrested for the murder. The circumstances of Laura's death are exactly like Fabrizia's murder, which makes Walter suspect that Kyle himself wrote this book. The next day, Walter goes to the jail to meet Kyle and asks him about the number 23. He also asks if he wrote this book under the name Topsy Kretz to confess his crime, but Kyle says that he did not kill Laura, and that he is serving a punishment for something he didn't do, and he has not written any book. Walter comes out of the jail and tells his family that he doesn't think Kyle could commit this crime. Then Robin mentions that he was reading the book last night and found the author's mailbox address on a hidden piece of paper. The family decides that they will send packages to this address. The next day, on February 9th, they all reach the delivery office and wait to see who comes to pick up these packages. After a little while, an old man wearing a hat comes inside, and the family thinks he is the author. Later, when the old man is opening the package, Walter asks him about the book, but the man is shocked to see him and says that Walter should have been dead by now. He attacks Walter and tries to run away, but Walter catches him and asks what the number 23 means. The old man only says that Walter already knows this, and then he slits his own throat. Agatha rushes to help him and tells Walter to take their son and leave from there. Before dying, the man gives an address to Agatha, and she also finds a card in his pocket. In the evening, Agatha tells Walter that the old man has died, and she couldn't get any information about him. It turns out that Agatha has reached the address given by the old man, which is an old and abandoned asylum. There, she discovers that the man's name was Dr. Larry, who used to work there. Agatha goes inside the asylum and soon finds Dr. Larry's office, which she enters. On the other hand, at home, Walter discovers that every 23rd word on every 23rd page of the book is giving him a message. The message says, "Go to Casanova's park and dig beneath the steps to heaven." Walter decides to go there with his son. At the same time, Agatha reaches a scary red room inside the asylum, where she becomes distressed to see the number 23 written everywhere on the walls, and a box lying on the floor with the name Walter Sparrow written on it. Suddenly, she gets scared by someone's presence. On the other side, the father and son reach the park, and after walking 23 steps, Walter starts digging. There, both of them get terrified when they find a human skull under the ground, and they immediately run toward a nearby phone to call the police. But when the police arrive there, the skull has disappeared from that spot, upon which the police accuse the father and son of playing a dirty prank on them. After a lot of questioning, the police leave, and at that same time, Agatha arrives there with Dr. Isaac to pick up her family. While they are going home, they encounter Ned, who is sitting in the middle of the road in a strange way. Walter blames him for being responsible for all of this and drives his car straight toward him, but then he does not hit him. Then suddenly, Walter's eyes fall on Agatha's hands, which are covered in dirt. Walter gets a shock and realizes that it was Agatha who had stolen the skull. Walter accuses her of being a killer and writing the book. When he checks her bag, he finds a knife inside, which makes his suspicion even deeper. At that moment, Robin arrives there and asks what is happening, so Walter tells him that his mother is a killer. Agatha finally admits that she and Isaac stole the bones, but she says she did all of this to save the family. Agatha tells Walter that the book was not written by her, but by Walter himself. She shows him the original manuscript that she found at the asylum, and which has Walter's name written on it, but Walter refuses to believe this. At this point, Isaac also comes to them, and Walter accuses both of them of this being some plan of theirs. But Agatha shows Walter a saxophone that the book character Fingerling used to play. Seeing it triggers a memory for Walter. Walter immediately searches for things in his old box of belongings and finds several items there that slowly piece together his memory. Distressed by the weight of all these memories, he runs away from home, and the family runs after him. A little later, Walter reaches back to room number 23 of the King Edward Hotel, where he sees a vision of his past. He starts tearing the wallpaper off the walls and is surprised to see Chapter 23 written underneath. In this chapter, Fingerling finally reveals his real name, which is none other than Walter himself. He explains that after his mother's death, his father could not cope with the situation and took his own life. He hadn't even left a note, and only the sign of the number 23 was left behind. This number followed Walter his whole life and didn't leave him even in college, where he met Laura Tollins. They both start dating, and Walter becomes madly in love with her. One day, Walter's world is destroyed when he finds out that Laura is having an affair with her professor, Kyle. When he reaches her house, Laura has thrown his things out and left a breakup note. Walter goes crazy and counts every 23rd word of that note, finding a message to kill her. Walter goes to give her a warning to run away because that number is after her, but she does not take him seriously. She says that she never loved Walter and calls him a weak and useless man just like his father. Hearing this, Walter gets extremely angry and stabs Laura many times with a knife until she dies. After that, in a state of great distress, Walter hides her body in the park, and there he sees that same dog, Ned. Later, Professor Kyle comes there to meet Laura and gets worried seeing the bed covered in blood. He accidentally touches the knife, which leaves his fingerprints there, and he gets framed for the murder. On the other hand, Walter goes to the King Edward Hotel, takes room number 23, and before taking his own life, starts writing this book as a confession of the crime. In the end, he writes Chapter 23 on the walls and floor of the room. Then he jumps down from the balcony, but despite being severely injured, he survives, though his trauma is so great that he forgets everything. He is taken to the asylum where his writings are considered merely fiction, and they fall into the hands of Dr. Larry. Walter receives treatment and gets better, but he remembers nothing about Laura. After leaving the hospital, he meets Agatha, and they both fall in love with each other. During this time, Dr. Larry reads that book and publishes it, but he himself gets trapped in the curse of number 23 and goes insane. Walter is remembering his past in that hotel room when Agatha arrives there. He feels very bad that he took someone's life and sent an innocent man to jail. Agatha tells him that he is now a good person and an excellent husband and father. Still, Walter goes out on the street in the fire of regret and sees Ned there. He decides to end his life, but at the last moment, he sees his son and changes his mind. He realizes that he doesn't want to put Robin through the same trauma he went through himself, seeing his father's death. The whole family cries and hugs each other, and Walter understands that 23 is just a number. A while later, we see the scene of burying Laura Tollins' bones, where Kyle is now free, and he and Ned are present there. It is revealed that Walter has surrendered himself to the law and is in jail. He is hopeful that because of telling the truth, he will get a shorter sentence. At the end of the film, Agatha and Robin come to meet him in jail, and Walter looks at the clock whose hands are at 23, and the story ends right there.